Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you are enjoying the virtual summit. And here we are with an exciting next 45 minutes of a friendly chat with two school friends, two school time
All right.
friends. Let me introduce you to our Fireside chat host and our speaker, keynote speaker. I'm really excited to present to you our keynote speaker for the afternoon, a visionary entrepreneur, Rod Robinson, who is currently the Vice President of Business Acceleration, Supplier Inclusion, and Sustainability at Coupa Software. Uh, Prior to Coupa, Rod was the founder and CEO of Connexus Inc., a cloud procurement platform that enables global 2,000 companies to achieve supply chain objectives related to supply chain transparency, diversity, sustainability, and economic impact. Uh, I've known Rod for a long time, and one thing I know about him is that he started this Connexus many years back as a very small company, as many of you do, and went through multiple rounds of venture capital financing, 628% revenue growth from between 2013 to 2018, building an enterprise customer base, including some of the world's leading brands, and ultimate acquisition by Coupa on May 4th this year, 2020. And to question him is his school time friend, Sanford Dickett. He's a serial entrepreneur from Florida who made his way to Silicon Valley in the 90s as part of the dot-com era, being part of companies like Yahoo, Napster, and advising companies including PayPal. In 2000, and listen to this very carefully, he followed his heart to be in England and fell in love with the weather in London. Really? Really? But he has been
Yeah, it
part
was
of
it was a
Coupa.
beautiful July. It was a July day, so it was gorgeous.
So over to you, Sanford, with this note.
Thank you very much, and welcome to all of you, the 42 members that are here. Let me just say thanks. I was going to share something because there was a whole question about, hey, we're old friends and such, and I thought maybe I'd show you what it's like to look at people years and years ago. For example, this is our high school yearbook, and as you can see, there's Rod looking incredibly humorous in front of the entire football team, and there's me being a shy nerd-like guy. And then these are some other
That's
photos of us
hilarious.
having fun in high school. The Rod's good with his mom. His mom is a good person, and he was always great. And then I always love this shot because for some reason the high school yearbook crew did not really want to use our names. Or wait, they used different versions of our names. And so Henry here is looking very,
Uh,
very handsome in comparison. And I don't know who the guy is on the other side. But and then it's been interesting because since Rod created Connexus, over the years he's been spending a lot of time here in England, and so whenever he shows up, we always catch up. And so you can see we've been hanging out pretty much on a biannual basis. And I do apologize. 2018 was a rough year, but we're getting better at it. I mean, glasses and all. That's age, you call it, Rod?
I would say
Uh,
age.
I would say
Uh,
age too.
I'd say
But
age. Experience.
and
Experience. Let's say
experience. There you
experience.
go. I like that
Yeah.
one better. And then
Yeah.
the other part to bring into it is the two of us have had way too much fun over the years uh, enjoying cigars. You really like your cigars,
Yes,
and
I
you've
do.
been like my educator the whole time. But I wanted to
Absolutely.
welcome y'all, and Rod and I have basically gone over what we wanted to talk about, or at least ask Rod about, because we thought you might find a couple of things on his path interesting. By the way, you can also, if you'd like, ask questions in the chat. Which, if you're using your Zoom, there's a chat area, and you can basically go to attendees, or you can also ask in the Q&A. Okay. Aside from that, what we're going to do is I was going to ask Rod a little bit about Connexus and his experience growing it. I was going to ask him about some of the learnings he got out of actually building the business. What are some of the challenges of being a person of color entrepreneur? And what do you think about raising or making a business in the UK versus the US. And then I was curious because most people don't understand, but what's the difference between angels, VCs, private equity, and family offices? And why would a person of color be useful in each and every one of those areas? Sound like an interesting thing? Anyone intrigued? Wow, you guys are chatting so much. It's always fun when I watch everyone being quiet. Oh, it says allowed to talk. Oh, guess what? We didn't allow them all to talk. I guess they have to ask it in the Q&A. All right, well, then you can ask it in Q&A, I've discovered, because I'm not in charge of the features. Oh, there we go. There's Hyde. Hello, Michelle. Thank you. Okay, so we got somebody. So to start off with, I was going to ask Rod about Connexus, because I remember the email you sent me in 2011 giving me a new tech company on a business spin. What in the world? How'd that happen? What was the start?
Yeah, I mean, the start was really a response to my own frustration in my, corporate procurement career, where you would always hear companies or, people complain about the inability or the difficulty in finding qualified minority and women-owned businesses. As in the States and now growing, more broadly, most large corporations have goals and objectives around, spending and driving economic impact with small business. And supplier diversity has grown very pervasive. So my objective was really to create a solution for the problem that was being complained about relative to being able to find qualified minority and women-owned businesses. So when I, set out to start Connexus, it was really focused on starting, really creating a large network community database where corporations who had objectives, supplier diversity objectives, will be able to locate diverse suppliers. So that was really the start of it.
And that was because it sounds like that should be easy enough to find. I mean, isn't there something like Thomas Register of that kind of thing? Didn't that exist before?
I mean, there's Thomas Register. But, it's interesting. I think one thing that we fail to forget is that relationships drive so much of what happens in the corporate world. I would say whether you're raising money, whether you're trying to pursue a corporate contract, people like to do business with people they know and trust. And so I think that, if you have to meet people where they are, you have to fish in different ponds. And I think when it comes to finding minority suppliers, I just think people were going to all the right places or trying to rely on the sources for sort of, general market pursuits. And that's just not the way to do it. So.
And I remember a chat about, we're going to use some, I almost want to play diversity bingo or whatever. And they want diverse talent to expand the problem with fishing in the same pond is you always get the same fish.
Yep.
What the benefit in your case was you expanded their reach, yes?
Yeah, we created a new pond and we made it easier, right? We wanted to take away the excuses. So we set out to create, sort of this unique platform that enabled companies to almost leverage networks because we were bringing suppliers who were already, who were proven, to this pool. And most of those suppliers, at least the initial pool of suppliers, were suppliers who were already doing business with large corporations. So it's almost like, you land at McDonald's and then you create profiles on their suppliers. Now other companies have access to those suppliers, and those suppliers benefit now because now they can broaden their customer portfolio.
So you basically created a two-sided marketplace in a way by offering the sourcing capability for clients, and then you offered the reporting capability for the suppliers, which would allow further clients to build out business with them.
Yeah, that's how we evolved over time, because I figured out pretty quickly that you're gonna only attract so many large enterprise customers as you're building this database. And one of the things that was lacking in the market, or that customers were demanding, was the ability to really baseline where they were and sort of create, have their data enriched, right? So they wanted to have their existing vendor base enriched or scrubbed, for lack of a better word. So being able to track and report was very important. And so what we realized is that was a great source for us, because that provided us with more data in which to help those suppliers create their profiles and provide the validation. It was a validation.
It's validation. But what I also recognize, in the United States, we spent a lot of time working on improving access to minority. And by the way, it always drives me crazy saying these words in a way, but minority entrepreneurs, minority suppliers, because of federal initiatives. Yes.
Yeah.
And so there was a market opportunity because of that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think a lot of this was started by, sort of government mandates. It was really the government's desire or realization that, obviously small businesses fuel the economy. And I think, given the fact that minority and women-owned businesses represent such a large chunk of that if we could drive opportunities to small business who have been probably for the last 30, 40 years, creator of net new jobs, 70% of net new jobs, that at the end of the day, everybody wins. If small business win, everyone wins. If minority businesses win, everyone wins. And any business, at least in the US, obviously it depends on what industry, but typically if you're doing over $500,000 in business with the government, you have to have a small business contracting program or supplier diversity program. And that typically trickles down in the market. So, while most customers that we do business with are doing some form of business with the government or serving someone who is serving the government, that's what's really kind of created this trickle down and, kind of started this compliance driven approach. But it's interesting. I was talking to a customer just yesterday and just wanted to ask him, like, why do you all do this? Do you have any contracts with the government? And the answer was no. They said, no, we don't. But this has become a board mandate. This has become a top agenda item. And I think it's, with all of obviously there have been some social inequality, there some social unrest, obviously racial injustice taking place. And you've even seen the movement in the UK with the killing of George Floyd. I think it's even heightened the awareness around the need for supplier inclusion. And so it's great to see it. It's always been, on the agenda, on the corporate agenda, but it's great to see it, rising in importance. But hopefully
it's sort of along the corporate citizenship or good citizenship in the community, doing the right thing for the right reasons and then benefiting as well.
Yep.
Which, by the way, is going to lead me into some of those learnings you and I talked about. At one point, you'll say about the joy about being pain reliever versus a vitamin.
Yep.
Sorry, by the way, I hope everyone here in England are appreciating I'm trying to use the proper phrasing. And anyone in the attendees, I also love seeing chats because we will bring in your questions. I'm going to post something real quick and say, hey there. So hopefully all of you got to see that post that shows up on your chat. If you want to ask questions, feel free to. And don't be English. Americans, we love interruption. It's part of our joy. Michelle, thank you. But I was going to say, Rod, one of the things I'm curious about. Oh, there you go. No worries. Thank you. And Morris, thank you. What are some of the learnings you found out as you grew the company? Because as we talked a couple of times now, one of the things, you had certain assumptions when you were growing the business. And then looking back, you go, I wish I had done something different. So what were the assumptions you did as you were growing the business and acted upon? And then what did you learn? Like, that was something I thought was important, but not so.
Yeah, I again, this was really my first rodeo, as they say, in terms of, first time entrepreneur. Right. And so I really set out to solve a problem that I had and many colleagues had. And so, I had this idea. I shared the idea with, some friends, former colleagues, and I quickly realized I was onto something. There was an opportunity here, significant market opportunity in my view. So I went after capital. Now, looking back, yeah, we raised a total of 12 million, 10 million in equity, 12 million total capital paid in. It took 3 years to raise the first 5 million, right? So when I compare my journey to the journey of, friends or, other entrepreneurs, that were not of color, I will say, I've seen many situations where there's an idea and then there's a pot of capital that enabled them to raise that capital and execute for the first 3 years, right? For me, I had to continue to prove the business model, continue to land customers, right? I continue to have to prove the business case and defend the business case and defend the business model. So I realized that not having access to some of the networks that, I actually have access to now that I've kind of been through the process, but, as a minority, the checks aren't being written by, or that's the vast majority of the checks aren't being written. That's changing a bit now, but you realize how not having access to networks of, sort of minted entrepreneurs, experienced entrepreneurs in tech, as well as institutional investors that don't have, diverse investors making decisions who have, the context to relate to the business I'm building. It makes it a little bit difficult. And so I noticed that was a challenge. So that was definitely something that hindered, the inability to raise the capital up front, or at least a significant amount of capital up front. It definitely crippled me such that I was not able to really execute beyond 6 months, right? Because every 6 months you're going out to raise capital.
Well, we were always talking about that because when you were doing it in the beginning, what kind of capital were you raising? Were you talking to people that understood the business? Were you talking to people that were like, hey, I'm giving you money because you're a friend? What was the situation then?
Yeah, it was really, yeah. I mean, you were going to people that you knew, you were going to people that had an affinity for the idea, an affinity for the problem that's being solved. So yeah, I was pursuing mostly individual angels early on. Now those, early angels, and there were quite a few of them, that positioned me to attract, the kind of the first institutional money, probably 3 years later. But it's a different game, right? You can't be as strategic when you're kind of living hand to mouth, right? Going after capital every 6 months, hey, it's all about hustling and business survival, right? So that was what I did. I pursued the angel money. There was people who believed in it, believed in the business model. They supported us, and that enabled us to at some point attract that institutional money. But one of the learnings is that once you attract that institutional money, oftentimes, they will want to come in and simplify the cap table such that, we minimize the number of instruments, right? So there's this kind of consolidation. And so, those folks that supported you early on, because, they were smaller checks, the institutional investors, basically put the terms. Yeah, they put the terms out, and you have to be willing to live with those terms unless you want to continue. So that the lesson learned there is, be a lot more strategic and forward thinking about, raising capital, which obviously that's going to drive the complexity of your cap table or your ownership table, which can make things difficult down the road for sure. So definitely.
All right, well, I'm going to push you off cap table, because what you're saying is that as you get bigger and the success occurs, what you're saying is that a messy cap table can scare off investment, or they force certain things to happen.
Absolutely.
but I'm assuming a majority of the people watching this are, starting entrepreneurs that are building businesses. And, it took you 3 years to raise the 5 mil. The question is, why wasn't it easier? Because with your background in procurement, you got your Wharton network, and you've done this both with Accenture and I forgot the other business you were with. I remember seeing it on your profile.
A.T. Kearney,
What was it?
A.T.
Yeah,
Kearney.
A.T. Kearney. Okay. So you had some pretty moneyed spaces. Why did it take 3 months if this business idea was moneyed? This should have worked. Why was it hard to raise the money?
I think it was hard to raise money because I think one thing that is important is how you deliver and illustrate the value proposition of what you're building. I think if you don't, if you're not fortunate enough to, pitch an investor who understands not what you're building today, but what it could be, initially I was pitching it as a supplier diversity platform, solving a problem of helping large corporations find minority suppliers. And right away for an investor, they don't necessarily see big market opportunity. They're seeing something that, is this more of a foundation type investment? Is this more of a, nonprofit? They don't really link it to outsized market opportunity. And at the end of the day, what that means is, what's my return on investment going to be?
Mm-hmm.
And what I had to learn and what I had to do is, because I didn't have, maybe access to, those networks where, people knew me, right, in the VC community. I had to really focus on the market opportunity. And, we moved from supplier diversity platform. At the end of the day, it was really a supplier relationship management platform, very data intensive. That was the asset that was being built. It was really, we're enriching this data. We're creating a valuable resource that was very data intensive, very robust, unlike anything else that was on the market. And there was all sorts of other opportunities, down the path. And I think as I continued to pitch and get feedback, I realized that I needed to make sure that I made it clear, like the asset that we're building and the value proposition. You're going to have folks, at the end of the day, that's the game, right? I mean, as a minority, you're not going to have access to the same networks as, some more, majority folks. But at the end of the day, you have to understand that you just have to be very crisp and very focused and very clear, about the value proposition and how that investor, particularly institutional investors, going to get a return on their investment.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of if any one of us were asked to put money into a business, if I don't know you, I want to know what my return is, because I might invest in a stock because I believe that the big business is going to grow, or I might want to be part of the ground floor of an opportunity, but you don't know. What is it? 99.9% of startups don't succeed. They burn out and flame out.
Yep.
And so the idea is that you've got to prove articulately, you've got to prove with a good model that your business has a multiplier given the gas of cash.
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep. Exactly.
And so, and that's what I wonder about that in terms of the challenges that are faced, because what you were saying in one of the conversations was how many people didn't even get what you were saying. It wasn't in their purview, minority or not. I mean, how many people understand procurement and supplier relations?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think at the end of the day, those that got it realized that supplier diversity is really just good procurement. It's best in class procurement. At the end of the day, as a procurement executive, I wanted to have a more open supply chain. I wanted to have more companies that were able to compete for what I was buying, whether it be products or services, because hopefully I'll come across suppliers that I never met before, gain access. I like to tell the story of when I was doing consulting, client made it very clear that supplier diversity was important. So, while you're helping us with this procurement transformation, driving costs out of supply chain, we want to make sure that we maintain the integrity of our supplier diversity efforts. So we in fact want to increase our spending. And so we ended up, this happened to be a procurement or an IT outsourcing firm. And we actually introduced a minority IT consulting firm that really built their business in the government space, in the federal government space. And lo and behold, not only did this supplier bring significant cost savings and innovation to this client, they actually ended up partnering with them. They had access to a GSA contract. They ended up partnering with them in bringing this larger IT outsourcing firm access to a market that they hadn't even thought about. So that's just another example of the value of an inclusive, supply chain is, you're going to have access to suppliers. If you continue doing business with, the same pool of suppliers, you're just going to meet the same results, right?
You're missing out on the diversity.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like you said, hey, if you've been eating vanilla ice cream all your life, and all of a sudden you try chocolate, you're like, oh man,
that actually
awesome,
could be
right?
pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. And I also suggested strawberry, but that's another story. Okay, but hang on. I'm gonna push you past because I know everyone here is just thrilled on the story of procurement.
Oh yeah.
Sure. And I'm going to work on talking about entrepreneurship. But I also want to say, one, we've just been told that we can go an additional 5 minutes.
Okay.
And two, there's a bunch of questions. But one of the things that you're doing everything in the U.S. and while I don't have the proper English accent, I really can speak to some of the things you can do here in England, such as fundraising and some of the challenges about raising businesses here. But I want to do this before I ask it. Before I go into that thread, is this what you guys want? Because I'm also looking. I see a lot of interesting questions. Have you looked at the chat yet, Rod, and the Q&A?
Oh yeah, no, I didn't.
Yeah, click on that because I'm about to say. I'll give you some quick data points for everyone to hear. If you want to raise money while Rod looks at the questions, there are some crowdfunding sites. One called Syndicate Room, one called Cedars, one called Crowdcube. All of these are ways of getting money at the beginning. By the way, sorry, I live next to two hospitals, not just one. Moorfields Eye Hospitals around the corner, so I always get to hear like I'm in New York. But one of the things that keeps coming back over and over and over again is you need to have a real business model. A good idea is wonderful, but raising capital requires, again, you got to prove to me I'm going to make money on giving you cash. So if I gave you 10, I want 100 back. I'd be okay with 20, but getting that back is important. And so these are things that we all need to be working on whenever we're doing business raise or fundraising. Yeah?
Yeah.
Now, do you see the questions, Rob?
Yes, I do. I see some great questions here.
Yeah. So which one you want to start with? Because I'm thinking our questions were fine, but I'm going, this seems a little more interesting.
Yeah. So let me, I'll try to tackle this first one, but I may need help from Mayank on this one. And this is from Bipin Patel, and it's asking, how do you translate the supplier inclusion to the UK market, especially public sector? Can it really happen without some real compliance and enforcement? We also look at the black and brown pound, and are we not in some way losing real opportunity to demand and make changes? And, Bipin, what I would say to that, so Connexus, we were fortunate to expand the scope of our business into the European market, really starting in the UK. And I think that there's really no difference. I think the benefit that we have in the US is, access to more data. I think we have the Minority Business Development Agency and the SBA who capture a lot of data to help build a business case around it, which is what kind of, was the catalyst for it. At the end of the day, I can say that, hey, in the US, of 28 million businesses, half are minority and women-owned businesses. However, they only represent 7% of the total revenue generated. So that's a huge disparity given the fact that they drive almost 70% of the net new jobs, right? So that's a pretty easy business case. I don't know what data we look at in the UK, but I would bet it's the same business case, right? And would you agree?
I think you're absolutely right. You're spot on over here because I've studied the US model for the last 20 years. And one of the things that I get every time is rich data that builds the business case over and over and over again. And I think that's something that we are campaigning in this country for last 16 years since I started Amnesty UK, but somehow the government doesn't get it. You know, we just don't monitor ownership of the business, and that basically doesn't help us come out with data about disparities. We just don't even know how many ethnic minority businesses are in this country, or how many women-owned businesses are there. We just don't have any data about business, and I think that's the biggest challenge we have to build a really strong business case.
Okay, so what you're saying in a way is the lack of unionization or the creation of a connexus out here with that kind of rich data is missing to be able to make the business cases to those lovely politicians, because Bojo is always interested in data. Sorry, sarcasm again. I was going to ask you, Rod, based on let me go with Mona. Mona Hassan asked, how did you manage to overcome biases and deal with rejections? How did you manage to keep being motivated and driven? And I think you're incredibly articulate when you say the answer to this.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, that's called an American trying to use sarcasm.
Well, go ahead.
No, you go.
Me?
That's you. Yeah, well, I was just basically trying to be sarcastic.
Well, Mona, that's a great question because Sanford and I were having a conversation the other day, and just it enabled me to reflect, and some of the the insults that I heard. It comes off as compliments, but after one of my early VC pitches, like the feedback was, wow, this is one of the best presentations I ever had. I mean, you guys are so articulate. And my thinking was, well, what did you expect? So, I think you have to realize the game you're playing, and just that the playing field is not level. And you just have to be comfortable with the fact that you just assume you're going to be underestimated first. And also you just have to assume that, whoever you're pitching to won't understand what you're talking about, or, won't think what you're talking about. Right. And I think that you just have to continue to persevere and plow through it. And at the end of the day, entrepreneurship is hard. Raising capital is hard. Rejection is pretty normal. You just have to believe and realize that every no gets you closer to a yes. And you just have to continue to refine your pitch. And, you will, if you have a great business model, the money will find it, because I think greed, will win out over, biases every time.
You mean
right?
Capitalism? I can't imagine that working.
Yeah, right. It's just going to be more difficult. I mean, it's just going to be more challenging. You just have to be up for it, and leverage all the resources and advisors that you can, because it is a tough road. I mean, it can be very lonely. So,
question for you. I mean, Rob, one of the things that she's asking in this question is, how'd you overcome it and deal with the rejections? Because one of the reasons why I showed the photos is you were incredibly gregarious, and I was insanely shy in high school. Yeah. And so how did you handle this? Because, I mean, you had a network-ish, as in you went to school, but what's it like being CEO? I mean, how do you handle that your company is on your shoulders? How did you address it so you could basically get through this stuff?
I think you find your outlets. Frankly, my faith definitely carried me through. My family. I mean, having a family that supports, that's been very supportive and understanding of the fact that hey, you pour your life into this, and they understand that I'm going to be working a lot of hours, and I'll be traveling, and I think that was the most important thing. But I think also networking and building relationships with, experienced entrepreneurs who had gone through it and, understood. And fortunately, I had a couple of my VC investors who were experienced entrepreneurs that were, very understanding and very, very caring about reaching out and me, hey, how's everything going? They know you've gone through a rough patch, but had a lot of near-death experiences, have to worry about, making payroll and had to come home many nights and tell my wife that, yeah, we're not going to get a paycheck this month. And in fact, we got to put more money in the company to make payroll. Right. So, definitely challenging.
What I'm trying to get to, though, is that because when you brought up VCs, that usually tends to be after the first 3 years.
Yeah.
My question is, what happened in the beginning of the first 3 years? And again, I'm making an assumption here. A lot of these people on the call are primarily, starting out. And so in that crucible of pain.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
wait, because by the way, what VCs love being your friend when they've given you money because you actually own something of theirs.
So in the early days, it was all about hustle, right? So you build your team and you typically, the folks that you bring on early on, I mean, they buy into the passion, right? And, they're excellent. Like I can think about the team of, my first 3 or 4 hires, right? I mean, everybody worked around the clock. We shared this little shoebox of an office and it was all about the hustle. It was all about keeping the lights on, hey, in those days, it was pretty, common not to have money for payroll. Right. But it'd be like a quick meeting. Say, hey, everybody's cool with payroll being delayed by a week. Oh yeah, no problem. Blah, 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 blah. So I think surrounding yourself with that, core group of early employees who understand that it's going to be a struggle getting over that hump. Right. And getting to, that proof of, beyond the proof of concept. Right. I mean, I think it's so critical and, getting the product market fit, right. As we say. So that was critical, but a lesson that I learned is interesting. Once you move beyond that, from C to kind of Series A, those same people that were so critical in getting you to that point are not always the same people that will get you to that next level. So it becomes, there's a lot of emotions when you have to, part ways with people who don't grow or who are not sort of a great fit for that next stage of growth. And so that's a challenge, but it's something that, as a CEO, you have to make quick decisions around that and be decisive.
So I'm looking at the questions that are here, and there's a couple of interesting ones. I want to bring it up, but one is Ankur Rana is saying, hey, nice to hear from you. And would you like to share your experiences of your recent acquisition? That's a fun experience to talk about.
Yeah. I can.
And by the way, I'm gonna push you on a 1 minit time limit because I got my little timer here. Go ahead, give them 1 minute of what the pain is like. Sorry, the fun. The fun.
Yeah, Ankur, great to hear from you as well. And yeah, I think it's great, right? Because one of the things I set out to do when I started Connexus was really mainstream supplier diversity. I mean, there have been solutions that have come along and, I really felt that long term, once we got supplier diversity solutions built into procure to pay, that it becomes scalable, right? So while I'm very excited about what Connexus built in terms of, tracking and reporting solution, I'm even more excited about sort of combining the Connexus capabilities into the Coupa platform, because now, the nearly $2 trillion in spend that's transacted across Coupa, we can actually now have some significant impact in helping to drive and guide enterprise dollars to minority suppliers. And that's what really excites me on a global scale.
All right, I'm gonna give you another minute. You ready? By the way, I hope you guys appreciate it. We're gonna go into lightning rounds because I'm recognizing we have a limited time. And so this one, let me go for this. Okay, well, people are looking for resources, and I want to get some books from you. And there's one I wanted to do later. Um, Let me think. Let me see what we got. Oh, well, what advice you have in creating and maintaining a mindset of self-reflection as an entrepreneur, and also what have been your you love to talk about this biggest failures and what did you learn? Okay, got a moment?
Wow.
Yeah.
I would say, I think it's important to reflect often. Like I didn't spend enough time reflecting. It was really driven by others reflecting, and it was even, I think it's important to realize, people say, "Oh man, this is great. You've been able to raise, inspire people by raising capital." I didn't realize like I was on a list of 200, Black entrepreneurs who had raised over $1 million in the States. I don't think that's anything to be proud of. I think it's a shame that there has to be a list for that. But if it can inspire others and have others come to me for advice to, help them through that process, I think it's great. So I think it's great to reflect, in terms of my biggest failure and what I learned from it. Well, let me tell you, I've had a lot of failures. I would say the biggest, I wouldn't say failure, but learning is not acting quickly enough on people issues. I think from an organization standpoint, as you're managing growth, I think that, as my mother-in-law once said, when people show you who they are, believe them, right? I think, oftentimes you say, you feel this sense of loyalty. And I think that I probably, waited too long to act on a couple of, key people.
All right. Well, it turns out, sadly, evidently the tech support team is basically saying, no, 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 we can't stay for an extra 5 minutes.
Oh,
But Mayank says that we can do a webinar at another time, so we can actually do a conversation again. And I want to make sure that, for example, Maris will try to answer, Claude will try to answer. Hopefully, Jordan, was that good for you? All of these things, we will try to do the best we can to give you some answers. And a webinar
reach
would be
out to me.
great. Okay.
Feel free to
Yeah,
reach
feel
out to me.
free.
Mayank has
Your,
my contact information.
by the way, which is there an email or a contact detail you want to give people?
I mean, they could Twitter, if you want
What's your
Twitter
Twitter
or my
handle?
email. Yep. Twitter is just at Rod Robinson. Yep. I can,
Okay, and mine, if you can see it, hopefully my finger goes to it, is at Sanford right here. If you want to reach me on Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn or Google, you can find me at Sanford. Okay. Aside from that, thanks, Mayank, for letting me and Rod catch up. And actually, since we can't do it in COVID time, this is our biannual gathering
it is.
again.
Yeah.
I mean,
You see, it
it's
was 14,
2020.
16, 18, and 20. So this is it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and granted, we have talked before this, but it's like the two of us hanging out, which is okay. And
Yeah.
when you're here next, I got at least 2 more cigar bars.
There you go.
All right,
That's where I
Thank
want to
you so
be.
much. Thank you so
Mayank,
much.
it's up to you.
I know, this could have gone for so long because, I was in the preparation, sort of preparatory call, and it went even longer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure that we are going to bring you all both together again for a webinar, so you don't have to wait till 2022. We are going to do it this year.
Whew.
We are
Yep.
going to
That's
come
great.
together and have our network again watch and listen to you. Thank you so much for taking time. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Maya.
It's our pleasure. Thank you, and
Thank you.
thanks for everybody watching. By the way, you've been a blast. And stop being so British. Be a little crazy American. That's what an entrepreneur's about. I mean, I love England. That's why I'm here 20 years now. And there's a reason why. You have such history and such diversity. Don't miss it. Okay?
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
See you soon. And then I'm gonna reply to this one question. Okay?
Okay, bye.
All right. Here we go. Well, all right, anyway. All right, well, then I'm getting out of here. Bing.